very happy to see some very passionate people like Jason and Doug Brooks working on this. As I said, I think in another forum, I was sitting in one meeting with Doug beside me, and the guy practically designed the whole Kingston transport interchange as he was doodling, and it just looked gorgeous. And this is what he does for doodles. And he clearly was quite passionate about, to use his words, correcting some of the mistakes and saving the town centre, the mistakes that have happened over the intervening years from the original concept plan. So we're pleased to see guys working on it that are as passionate about it as we are. The plan, if you've got your gun smokes there, you can probably, rather than trying to get two things up on the screen at once, the dark blue is the town centre core. The medium blue is the C2 zone, business park. The lighter blue is getting into C5, which is mixed use, which is some residential, some commercial sort of mix. What we're sort of thinking is that the business park uses, i.e. the departmental scale uses, could actually extend to the south down the page because there are no overlooking issues, no height and scale concerns there, because the only thing you're doing is shading the grasslands, and we think that that'd probably be quite high value land also with the outlooks over the grasslands and all the way to the Brindabellas from a commercial development perspective.
The business nuisance might be appreciated being not blown around by the wind, protected by the 8-storey building.
So there's probably potential there to expand the commercial development potential there. Gee, I wish I was on the commission with the ACT government. And more intensity equals more jobs, to be blunt about it. The gateway treatment at the top of Hibberston Street is clearly talked about in the planning centre. By gateway treatment, I'm talking about this orange blotch there at the top end of Flemington Road. This is essentially, as it's described in the words of the planning study, a treatment to bounce through traffic around the town centre rather than through it. To use my words, presenting Hibberston Street as a high friction thoroughfare, as in you can drive down there. Probably best to only do it if you actually want to go there, because otherwise it's going to take you a fair while to get through.
And that's already the case sometimes.
Yes.
I get to watch it out in my office with that.
Which was why I had I drew Neil Savory's attention to the fact that the Roads ACT were about to install traffic lights between Big W and Woolworths, which might be great if you're a person who drives through there all the time, but what it means then is that there's a guaranteed time cycle to get through if you're a driver, as opposed to trying to get through there on a Saturday morning at the moment. You basically give up, which is probably how it needs to be if you're going to discourage through traffic. It needs to be hard for a driver to get through. So they put those traffic lights on hold while this transport study that's part of this planning study went through. So that's a good thing. How it is that happens is really important to get it right in order to divert the through traffic as opposed to the destination traffic. People know what I mean by that? Yeah. The other end is important because Gin Street, with its congregation of two servos opposite each other and all the traffic that causes, again it's going to be critical to get whatever gateway treatment right there to try to bounce the through traffic from the other end around the town centre, because unfortunately a lot of the commuters from the others from Mirabai and the like can end up going through there instead. So again, we need to present that high friction gateway to the town centre. Same here. We're probably pretty cautious about C5 zone along the skirting of the town centre, because C5 zone at the moment means Anthony Roth Drive in the end towards Gosard Street, which is essentially a 3-storey townhouse with a shop underneath. Everything that the LDA's delivered in C5 has been basically. So we're really cautious about that, and we need to have some very tight constraints, design constraints, to prevent that sort of thing just being rolled out sausage factory LDA style.
I just pipe in there. When I was here last time, I couldn't think off the top of my head about an example of the kind of mixed-use zone, which is quite different to what's happened in Gungahlin so far. Possibly a good example is Kingston Foreshore, which is, you know, far more density.
Viridian
That's right. Some of them have got shops underneath and, you know, offices in the mezzanine and then apartments on top. In other places there's going to be, you know, a purely office building next to a purely apartment building. So they can be mixed up the building within one building or mixed in, you know, buildings next to each other. So that's probably a reasonable example of what we could get. But you're right, we'd have to put in planning rules to make sure that other things didn't turn up.
It's one of those devil in the detail issues, isn't it? Are people generally comfortable with what we're putting forward in this sort of thing? No? Because we need feedback, otherwise we're sort of operating in a bit of a vacuum.
At one point on Emerson Street, I can't see why there should be any private parking down there, which there is at the moment. There is quite a few loading zones, but there is a reasonable percentage of private parking, especially down the GN. There is ample parking
parallel car park
on the at street level, by Medicare and all that sort of thing. There is ample parking underneath the G, under Big W, underneath Aldi. I've never seen them full. Also, I don't know why recently, maybe petrol prices and rate hikes and that, the last couple of months have been never been that crowded, but even over Christmas time when the shops were pretty full, I've never actually seen any of those completely full. Some of them got close, but never completely full. And I don't reckon that should be encouraged. Have them there for bus, taxis, loading zones, happy for them to be used, not to be removed and cemented in, but for public use sort of thing, not private cars. As I said, loading zones, buses and things like that.
We watched 8 people get booked one after the other in a taxi.
Jason, I think that Doug was saying that in the text of the plan, they're looking in a transition that a block back between, if you're looking at the picture, between the darker blues and the lighter blues as being the transition solution for grade level parking, ground level parking, to take it back. So if Hibberson Street were becoming more like Childers Street in the ANU district, there would be minimal grade level car parking down Hibberson Street. It would become very much a al fresco and pedestrian dominated thoroughfare during the daytime, less so in night time, so there's still some traffic movement from a casual surveillance security point of view for shopkeepers. But the bulk car parking at grade would be pushed back a block temporarily until such time as development intensifies further. The business park, we've talked about the business park developments not being, as the current zoning sort of talks about, being built to boundary as a requirement, but rather having better setbacks and open space and green development, green breaks between developments, taking a lot of design cues from Rindabella Park. Shouldn't be there, but gee, they've done it well. It's a gorgeous place to work if you didn't have to commute to it. The transition from the offices to the surrounding residential areas, which are as little as single story, butting right up to the area that we're talking about, needs to be carefully managed in design constraints.
That's one of the reasons that we've, you know, in our thinking we've put the mixed use
C5
zones in there, because, you know, there's a lot of difference between a 3-storey apartment building, which, you know, will be, you know, each storey is not that tall, compared to a 3-storey office building where the floor to ceiling heights are much higher, so that the people in the top storey are a lot